Welcome to another episode of the Folding Tales podcast. Guess what? It's me, Jackie, and as always, I'm here with my brilliant co-host, David.
Hello!
Today, we've got a truly special episode for you. I am so excited for you to listen to this one. It is absolutely jam-packed with insights, inspiration, practical advice. We are deep diving into the world of massage therapy research with some amazing, incredible guests.
That's right, Jackie. We have called this episode Massage Meets Research, Building an Evidence Base for Massage. And it is all about exploring why research matters so much to our profession and how it can transform not only how we practice, but how we are perceived within the broader healthcare landscape. So whether you are new to research or are already interested, this conversation will open up some new ideas for you.
David, it's so exciting. We are actually joined with three outstanding experts, and I cannot wait for you guys to listen to them. The first one is Ronna Moore, who we have done some episodes with already, so you may know her or have heard of her. She provides down-to-earth advice on how therapists can contribute to research without needing a formal academic background. She highlights the value of case studies, quality improvement projects, and even sharing your findings through accessible platforms like blogs and trade journals. Ronna shows how every therapist can actually play a role in building the evidence base for massage.
So cool. Next is Dr. Jan Douglas, and she joins us to unpack some of the challenges within traditional research paradigms, like how randomized controlled trials are deeply flawed and they don't capture the nuanced individual nature of massage therapy. And drawing on her extensive experience in lymphatic and global health research, Jan explains why we need to embrace alternative approaches like practice-based evidence to better reflect the work that we do.
And finally, we get to speak with Dr. Sarah Fogarty, a researcher who has over 40 publications to her name. Sarah shares her journey into the world of massage research and offers practical tips for therapists who are curious about getting involved, from designing case studies to navigating ethics and grants. Sarah's advice is inspiring and actionable. She also dives into the importance of mixed methods research, which captures both measurable outcomes and the unique therapeutic relationship at the heart of massage therapy.
So you might have already gathered, but this episode is a bit longer than usual, around 90 minutes, but trust us, it is worth the time. It's a fascinating conversation that touches on the future of massage therapy and how research can elevate our profession.
And do not forget, listening to this episode counts towards your CPE education hours. So grab your notebook, settle in, and get ready to explore how research can transform your practice and the massage industry as a whole.
Let's jump in.
So excited!
We are super excited to welcome back Ronna Moore to the episode.
Welcome, Ronna.
Thank you very much again, guys. Good to see you.
We are going to be on quite the journey, I think, today. We'd already talked a little bit about bringing you back anyway, Ronna, and then you've brought some ideas. We're going to kick back into talking more about how therapists can get involved in research and how they can value that research, some of those things. So thank you for coming back for the conversation, Ronna.
Oh, my absolute pleasure.
Yeah. Let's just jump in straight away into talking about research and the types of fields that therapists can get involved in and why it is important for them, and the types of things that they might be able to do that is well within their capacity.
Research does come in lots of different flavors. And I think I talked about the difficulty of massage therapists to participate in research in a formal setting. We don't really yet have a defined pathway for massage therapists to participate, but I'm hoping that will unfold more and develop more in time. And that formal research is very I might come back to that. What I really want to say is that there are other ways that massage therapists can participate in research, perhaps not with that goal to be in peer-reviewed journals, but there are other avenues for dissemination and participation. So what do I mean by that? I think we mentioned case study the other day, and certainly there is support around for massage therapists to generate case studies and also present them at conferences and so on. As MMA are very supportive of the case study approach. And that can be a really useful way of developing the capacity to formulate a question. All research is driven by a research question. And then the way you answer that will determine how you go about your research. So a case study is useful. Market research, for those of you in private practice, is really useful. Also, just to figure out how you might change the look of your practice, what kinds of clients you're seeing, how you might find a different population for your practice. There are all sorts of ways. It's completely something that I don't involve myself in, market research, but it is nevertheless research, and obviously useful for your practice. The other way to get involved in your own practice, even if it's a solo person, is to undertake some quality improvement projects. Quality improvement does come under the banner of research, even though it is with a small r, and it does there are some models of quality improvement out there which give some rigor and framework to how you might undertake a quality improvement project. One of the models that I've used is the PDSA model, which stands for, if you haven't come across that before, Plan, Do, Study and Act. So basically it's around, you have a question. It might be, just for examples, I'll use some of my own experiences with undertaking quality improvement. One was the bereavement massage program at Eastern Palliative Care, which we did a project on because we didn't really understand what the benefit of having a massage therapy in a bereavement setting was. So we did a simple a survey asking people to let us know, was there a physical benefit as well as an emotional benefit in receiving massage therapy during their bereavement period. And then we came up with that question. We planned how we're going to do it. Then we looked at the results. That's the study part. And then the next bit is really around looking at what came back from that feedback and acting upon that. In that case, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive, so much so that the organisation decided to increase our capacity. We ended up with an extra day for one of the therapists to provide bereavement massage therapy. So it was a good outcome. Now, it could be that you find that there's something a bit flawed in your practice, and then you can change that too. So quality improvement projects are really useful in developing some critical reasoning about your own practice. Now, how to disseminate that information? Obviously, if it's for an internal process, you're going to be drawing on that information yourself. But there is also opportunity to share that. And that could, just like case study, you may be able to write that up, especially if you write it up in a model like the Plan, Study, Do, Act model. There are others. And you could write that up for the journal, MMA journal, for example, or present it. I'd be really optimistic that MMA in the future might offer a poster exhibition, and you could create a poster. And that is a way to share information, stimulate conversation around what you're doing. And that's a way to participate in research as well. The other element to that is that anything that you do that ends up in the MMA journal, ends up on AMT blog, for example, you might write something, it will go into what's called grey literature. And grey literature is another avenue of evidence, of knowledge, which has not gone through peer review, but that does not necessarily mean it's not valuable. And I think I mentioned, David, in a conversation in preparation for these podcasts, that I have some stuff on Care Search. Now, Care Search is an Australian government run, it's called the Knowledge Network, and we're going to be talking about palliative care, and Care Search is a really great resource for palliative care data, information, resources out there in the world, in Australia, that is. And it has capacity to provide a filtered access to peer-reviewed literature, but it also has grey literature on there. So I have it, I think there's 7 or 8 articles of mine over the years that have ended up in grey literature. Now, to some extent, when somebody does a formal research project, the grey literature is not of particular interest to them because there is already a huge body of evidence and they don't really need it. But in a field like massage therapy, even though our evidence base is growing, it is still a relatively scant area for just to give you an example, there might be lots of research on low back pain and massage therapy, but none on, say, I might be saying something wrong here, but there might not be anything on headache, for example. So it's very fragmented. So what is really useful, and in my scoping review, I just did this, is that I did all the usual databases, literature search through those, but I also search for grey literature, and you can do that online through Google Scholar. You can do it through ProQuest. You can look for dissertations, conference papers, articles in what they call trade journals, which is what MMA journal is, or described as, and there's abundant information there, which is really interesting, and that is also an avenue for you to disseminate what you have discovered. Now, and I think that's can be really quite exciting, quite fun. The other important component of research is as a consumer of it. And I think we have to recognise that knowledge is dynamic. And I've certainly found that in my experience as a massage therapist, that things that I thought I knew or believed way back when no longer apply because things are changing. Now, some things stay the same. There's certain stability in some knowledge, but a lot changes. And we only have to think about all the research around fascia, for example, all the research around pain signs. In lymphology, there's been significant changes in our understanding of lymphology. And personally, I found the discovery of about 15 years ago, C-tactile afferents. I found that mind-blowingly beautiful for my work. And so what is the consumer of research? Being a consumer means that not only are you up to date with what's going on in your field, it means you can translate that into practice. It means you might be choosing PD as a result of that. And it's just a way of inspiring you, keeping you active. And I think, given my own experience, with this long period of time as a massage therapist, I think we need to feed ourselves in that way to keep us interested and keep us inspired. So that's the only other thing I want to say about research is that when you start doing formal research, there's a certain a way of going about it, and there's some frameworks from which you then need to proceed. And the fundamental framework is described can be quite scary words, but I've become quite fond of them since I know a bit more about them. But I do think they apply as therapists as well. And I'll explain why. And the things that I'm talking about are the foundations of research, which are ontology, epistemology, methodology, and axiology. So what do they mean, and why on earth can they be relevant? So
they do sound a little bit scary.
Yeah. So in simple terms, ontology, there'll be some people out there who may be familiar with this and they can correct me if I've got it wrong. Actually, I will just add that when you get a scholarship, as the government is paying me to do my doctorate, and I didn't realise until I got the document which outlined the fee thing, that it's described as a research training scholarship.
Oh.
So a light bulb went for me in that moment, because what it means is you're not going into a doctorate already skilled with the skills of research, because I fundamentally certainly didn't have them. What you're doing is you're learning how to be a researcher. So when I've got completely muddled and in a mess, I remind myself of that. I'm learning how to do this. It's really useful to have that in mind. But back to ontology, lots of fun. So ontology is basically your view of reality. It's how you view the world, how the world functions. Epistemology is the body of knowledge you use to explain that or support that view. And then the methodology is really the overarching framework to guide you what methods you use. So you're asking a question, you're formulating a way to answer that question. And the axiology is really about maintaining robustness and transparency. That's the ethical foundation for research. So why do I think this is relevant for therapy? I think it's relevant because the way you view the world, how you understand the world, how it works, will determine, I think, how you or what areas you choose to go in. So, for example, if you have a view that the world is there's an objective reality. So an objective reality is the land of the positivist. Now, there are more than two schools, but I'm going to use two schools just to make it easier. Positivists or post-positivists, as they're generally called these days, have a very firm belief in the objective reality of the world and everything in it. Now, on the other side of that, so they're concerned with facts and they're concerned with, so that's where you find the very biomedical approach. They're interested in objective facts. They're interested in causal relationships. And what you'll see out of that research when you go through where they're going to get their knowledge, how they're going to get their knowledge, is they're going to use randomized control trials. On the other side of viewing how you view the world is more constructivist or interpretivist. So that's a more subjective way of looking at things. So you might think that, yes, there's an objective reality, but things depend. They depend on context. They depend on, say, I'm looking at a red goat, but somebody else is seeing that goat and it's actually blue. So there's subjectivity. So I thought for a while, this definitely wasn't, because you have to figure out where you are in this. And I thought I definitely wasn't a post-positivist, but I also wasn't definitely a purely subjective person either, because there are things in the world that, like gravity, for example, I'm pretty sure that exists. But so for a while, I thought I was what's called a critical realist. But now I realize, as time goes on, iteration after iteration, I think I'm what's called a pragmatist. So that means if I go back to my question, my research question, I am going to use whatever methods will answer the question. So there is a little bit of, I'm not doing a randomized control trial, but I am using quantitative data, but I'm also using qualitative data because I want the subjective views of people, and I'm mixing them together, and that's called mixed methods. And mixed methods is having quite a big impact in research. I think biomedical research has given us enormous benefit. I personally have benefited enormously from the Western model of medicine, but there are limits, and we're recognizing that more and more. So, and I think it's quite interesting that even if you think of pain science talking about the VPS model, that's a shift. That demonstrates a shift. Even in the new definition of pain, it refers to subjective experience. Now, that did not happen 20 years ago. So there's definitely a shift. And I think it also informs how you view the world, and how you view how you're going to get knowledge informs the direction you take. So if you're very into looking at mechanisms, like this injury, someone comes in, they've rolled their ankle, and you're thinking lateral ligament, there's a definite causal pathway. your practice, your where you get your knowledge, who you follow in terms of PD will follow from that. But if you're a person that thinks this person might be the stress in their life is having a huge impact on their gut issues, for example, you may go down a different path. And I think that just on reflecting on David's question to me initially, why did I move away from MSK into where I'm at now? And yes, there were life events, but I also think it fits much better with my worldview, how I think the world is made up, how I think the world functions. I really invite people to, reflect on that, to reflect on where they might sit. And of course, we need both views. We need both. But it might help people work out what kinds of populations they'd be happier working with.
Well, we are joined now by Dr. Jan Douglas, who has been involved in therapeutic research for quite some time now with some really diverse interests, mainly around the topics of lymphatics, with an international focus, as well as research being conducted here in Adelaide, Australia. Welcome, Jan.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
So good to have you here.
I began my career as a massage therapist a very long time ago, back in the 1990s. And after, 10 or more years in massage therapy, I retrained to specialise more into lymphedema. So some of your listeners may be aware of the Dr. Voda School of Manual Lymph Drainage. And so 1997, I took my training in that and began to specialise in lymphedema management. That led me to some work with Professor Neil Pillar in Flinders Medical Centre at the Lymphedema Research Unit. I started there in 2004. Working with him in clinical trials on women with breast cancer-related arm lymphedema. That led to further studies for myself. I did an honours degree where my project was on yoga. It was a yoga-based intervention for women with arm lymphedema. And then I continued on to do a PhD in lymphatic filariasis, which is the largest cause of lymphedema globally, but it only happens in tropical countries, not in Australia.
Dr. Pillar is a bit of a legend here in South Australia. So that's that's really wonderful that you've done all of that. And it's a lot.
Yes, I had 8 years in the research with Neil, and it was absolutely a fabulous learning experience with him. That set me up beautifully to go on and do the PhD. After the yoga intervention, my PhD in lymphatic filariasis led to further research. I did large randomized controlled trials in Bangladesh and Ethiopia on self-care for lymphedema management. That was going really well until COVID put paid to doing that further overseas work. I'm still involved. I still am an adjunct associate professor at James Cook University, and I'm a member of the WHO Collaborating Centre for Vector-Borne and Other Neglected Tropical Diseases, which is a bit of a mouthful. And we now do what you'd call operational research. So we help the country programs who have to implement the WHO guidelines into their local clinic, health clinics. And so we do research that helps them to find the best way to implement those programs in their own countries. So not particularly related to massage therapy in Australia anymore, but I still have a really keen interest in research generally, and particularly in research around lymphedema, which is fundamentally flawed and will relate well to massage therapists who are trying to work and look for research on massage therapy related to chronic diseases and their own modalities, which is also probably very difficult to find any research on those kinds of topics.
So I'm curious about the wording there, fundamentally flawed. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Okay, so this comes to a concept that we have in medical research or what we call evidence-based medicine. So everybody will be familiar with that term, evidence-based medicine. But what does evidence-based really mean? Unfortunately, what it's come to mean in the medical setting is that we really only want what are called level 1 studies to inform us on whether a treatment is effective or not. Now, a level 1 evidence comes from things like randomized controlled trials, double-blinded randomized controlled trials, systematic reviews, and meta-analyses. And as none of these trial designs or analytical methods actually capture the work that we do, either as massage therapists or the interventions for chronic diseases, we are always missing this level 1 evidence. And since if you're looking to get funding for your research, if you're looking for the government to fund or health companies to rebate your particular modality, they all want to see this level 1 research, but it just doesn't work for the kinds of conditions that we're dealing with. And I'll use lymphedema as an example because I actually have published a paper on this called Evidence-Based Practice or Practice-Based Evidence, Why Pursuing Level 1 Evidence is Leaving Lymphedema Behind. And that's available in the Journal of Lymphedema, which is an open access journal, so you should be able to find it quite easily. And I was writing here specifically about the challenges in lymphedema research. And since lymphedema is a chronic disease, our therapists are faced with many of the same challenges that massage therapists will encounter in treatment of other chronic diseases. And it comes back to this point of, what does evidence-based practice mean? Well, if you think about those words, it means that the effect of the treatment can be observed and validated by others. And I'm sure that most massage therapists and their clients have observed positive results from the treatment that they've given. This is evidence that the treatment has worked. For the therapist and the client who's received the benefit of that treatment, this may be all the evidence that they require to continue doing treatment. But unfortunately, in that mainstream medical model, this is considered the lowest level of evidence and really disregarded by many health professionals.
It's disregarded by the public a lot too. The public have really bought into that, if it's anecdotal evidence, which is what you just described, we can't really accept that because, it could be the placebo effect, or it could just be your imagination, or it could just be, you kind of, well, of course you feel good after a massage, but did it do anything?
Exactly. And that's where the randomized controlled trial really comes into play, because the purpose of a randomized controlled trial is to take a whole bunch of people who are essentially the same, randomly allocate them into groups receiving either an intervention or usually a placebo, or sometimes 2 different interventions. And if you really want your study to be, of high value, then it's what's called double-blinded. So neither the participant, neither the recipient of the treatment, nor the person who's administering the treatment actually knows which treatment you're getting, whether you're getting the active treatment or the placebo. And this works really well for things like drug studies, where you can get a whole lot of people, say you can get a whole lot of women who are in their 40s, who are diagnosed with high blood pressure but don't have any other health issues. And then you give half of them your blood pressure medication, and you give the other half of them a placebo pill that has no medication in it. And if you have enough people, you've got to have a large number of people for the statistics. So that statistical analysis doesn't work well with small numbers of people. It only works well when you've got at least 30 or more in each of your groups. And so you need to have these large populations who are otherwise pretty much all the same, and then nobody knows what treatment they're getting. And I'm sure that the massage therapists who are listening will already see why this cannot work for massage therapy. How can either the therapist or the recipient be blinded to whether or not they're having a massage? Also, if we start to add in chronic diseases to that equation, does anybody really have one chronic disease in isolation and not have any other problems? In my experience, people who have chronic diseases have multiple contributing factors. Sometimes they're diagnosed with multiple different conditions that are contributing to the symptoms that they're experiencing. And so those kinds of conditions also don't lend themselves well to being, having a group of people that are all the same, having a intervention that they can't know what the intervention is. And so these randomized controlled trials are really letting us down when it comes to finding out whether a specific modality within a chronic disease population has any value or not. And so it really means that we have to try and get other types of trial designs into the picture that will actually give us a more nuanced evidence for the kinds of work that we're doing. And so this is a problem across the board for massage therapists and for people who are living with chronic diseases.
We heard from Dr. Adams when we were at the Massage and Myotherapy conference in May this year, and he talked about how with these double-blind studies, often the person giving the treatment is a researcher and not necessarily a clinician either. And then you miss out on those things of the intuition, and how do you measure somebody's intuition or experience for that matter to say, I think I'll just stay in this spot for a little bit extra, or you just get the vibes that you pick up on that come from those years of clinical experience. And those things are unmeasurable as well, and unpredictable client to client.
They are. They're not entirely unmeasurable. And the other problem with this levels of evidence that we're kind of stuck with this paradigm is that only really includes quantitative research. So things that you can measure. So in lymphedema, for example, the circumference of the arm, does the circumference of the arm go down? That's an objective measure. We can quantitatively do some analysis on that and talk about percentages and all those nice number things. But really, most of the work that we're doing as massage therapists would fall under the type of research, which is called qualitative research, where we can pull out those nuances of the person's experience, and that is often done through what they call semi-structured interviews. So the interviewer is skilled in eliciting the information from the person who's received the treatment. But yes, you're right. We can't have a randomized controlled trial where you apply exactly the same therapy to every person either, because in massage therapy, we know that's just not how it's done. Also, I'm not sure how many massage therapists are out there still applying single modalities either. My therapist, when I go and have a treatment, I get a remedial massage on my neck. I get some cupping on some other areas. She does lymph drainage on my sore knee. So she's synergistically combining all of the different modalities that she has available to her. And a randomized controlled trial just cannot deal with that kind of synergy either. And so we really need to rethink this research paradigm. So
therapists who are interested in assisting in research or maybe moving into the field of research, how do they go about doing that? Yeah, it is a very rewarding field to get into, and it will really, one of the unexpected things that I got from participating in research was actually the ability to read research, because this is also a problem for us. If you don't have that kind of academic university background, then you're kind of stuck with having to figure out what these research papers mean. So if you're reading original research, most people will do probably what I used to do before I had that academic training and read a bit of the introduction to find out what it's about, and then go to the discussion or the conclusions to find out what the end result was. But actually, a research publication is a little bit like an advertisement for your product. You're going to tell us, first of all, that absolutely the world needs your product. That's what the introduction is for. And then in the discussion, you're probably going to
fudge things a little bit so you look a little bit better than maybe you really are, so you can sell more of your product. And actually, it's the same in research. The introduction will skew your view towards what the author wants you to think is the need for this research, and then the discussion will skew the results towards what the author wants you to think about these. So if you actually want to appraise a research paper, you need to know how to read the methods and the results. And those are the bits that non-academic therapists will generally skim over because they don't understand the terminology. So one of the first things that I would suggest is that if people are interested in moving into any kind of research field, that they first of all begin to try and educate themselves just in research literacy. And a lot of universities will offer summer schools, little certificate courses over the summer break in things like that, so that they are for the general public. They are to increase general public awareness of academic processes and so forth. So I would first of all recommend that people look if their local university or some other kind of tertiary education that they have available to them, and see if they can find a short course in research literacy or something similar. The other thing would be to actually try and find a university or a university researcher who is working within their modality, and that's not necessarily an easy thing to find either. Once we start to talk about massage therapy, I was very fortunate when I wanted to do my program on arm lymphedema and yoga that the University of South Australia actually had a professor in yoga therapy who was doing a lot of other research on yoga, not necessarily in lymphedema, but I was able to talk to him and get him interested in my yoga intervention, and he therefore took me on as a student and supported that research project. So that would be, if you really want to go into the whole research side of things, then you probably need to find an academic that is already working either in the disease that you're interested in or in the modality that you're interested in. Another way to do that would be to use Google Scholar. So Google Scholar is available to everybody. Just put Google Scholar in your search bar and it will take you to another search engine, which is going to give you a lot of academic research results. And then find papers either on your modality or your disease and look for the authors of those papers and see if any of them are, first of all, Australian in your location that you could follow up and see if you can join into their team somehow with the research that they're doing.
I wish that this was talked about more, because this is absolutely fascinating. First off, this is such a huge topic and can be very hard to get into, particularly if you're regional.
And, case studies are a great way to start. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, Jackie, because this is, we have to we have to fight back against the system, in some respects. And what we have now that we didn't have when I was trying to get into research, a couple of decades ago, we didn't have blog posts. We didn't have a lot of people actually writing and publishing it in an informal way and putting that kind of information out on the internet. And you have to be a discriminative, you have to discriminate when you are reading that about who is the author and whether they're giving you good information. That's what a peer-reviewed publication does. You can trust the publication because it's been reviewed by other experts in the same field. A blog post doesn't have that check and balance in there for you. So you might want to do a little bit of research on the author or the organisation that's posted the blog. But we need to, as therapists, actually write up our cases and put them out there. We need to take before and after photographs if we're working on something that has an increase in range of motion. See if you can get your client to allow you to take a photograph before the treatment when they have a limited range of movement, and then in the same position, show that increase in range of movement after the treatment. So we need to be using things like pain scales. How many therapists are asking their client at the beginning of the session, If it's stress, how would you rate your stress level today? Take a score on 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 before the treatment. Ask them again to score it again after the treatment. We can take scores on pain like that as well. If we're working on a painful condition, what is your experience of the pain today? Give me a score on that. And then you can actually, over time, review those scores and just to have a bit of a pain scale, a couple of photos of change in range of movement to put into your blog can make a really convincing argument for why your treatment has actually had the benefit that you are claiming that it has. And then if we can each share each other's blogs, make sure that we post and like and share each other's blog posts, then we can get that information out into the general public. And whether or not we are getting necessarily the medical recognition, we will have much more recognition amongst the public for what we're doing. So that would be that's one of my main focuses now when I'm working with therapists in Australia, is really encouraging them to publish their own case studies.
To go back to the words of evidence-based practice, I had an anaesthetist as a client for many years, and we were talking about the evidence base in a session. He said, don't worry about the evidence base because anesthetics is not evidence-based. I just about fell over. He said, yeah. It's not evidence-based. We don't know how anesthetics work, but we know how to use them safely. We're making someone unconscious, but we don't even know where consciousness is. Why does a redhead require more anesthetics than someone who's not redhead? And said all of this is experience-based practice. I went, okay. I'm glad that you've got experience in anesthetics, but I'm still a little bit worried.
Yes, and I think that most people would be surprised to know that there's a great deal of medicine that's practiced that is not evidence-based. It's led by expert opinion.
Yes.
And for those of people who might have followed along recently with the research on things like arthroscopies for knee pain, there's absolutely no benefit in having an arthroscopy for knee pain, and can actually even make things worse, to have that little bit of, let's clean out the little bits or whatever they are in there, often can actually make things worse and lead to a consequent knee replacement. And
Yes.
yet, how many orthopedic surgeons are still offering that kind of cleaning out of the arthritic knee? Probably the other thing to mention, when we are talking about how people can get involved in research, is to mention the Australian Qualifications Framework, because for many of our massage and myotherapists now, these are university degrees, so they do have a bachelor degree, which that makes it the pathway into research from there is much easier than if you don't have that undergraduate degree, and I would say probably almost impossible without that, although there are exceptions, and exceptions can always be made. For the majority of our remedial massage therapists, though, our qualifications are still at the diploma level, which is AQF level 6. AQF level 6 training. No, it's a level 5. Level 5. I'm trying to get this straight in my head. So level 4 is a certificate 4, level 5 is a diploma, level 6 is an advanced diploma, level 7 is a bachelor degree, level 8 is a bachelor degree with something like honours or a postgraduate certificate, level 9 is a master's degree, and level 10 is a doctorate. So if you're not already at a level 7 with your undergraduate qualification, then you probably need to actually take that further step and get a level 7 bachelor degree in order to get into higher research. And I did that because when I trained in massage therapy, and this is the 80s, guys, there was no such thing as a health training package. We didn't even have these certificates or diploma levels. And so to upgrade myself later on in the late 90s, I did a degree in, it's just called a degree in health science. So it's not an occupational degree. It wasn't going to add any kind of modalities, but it gave me a way to take courses at university which were directly related to me. I did fundamental anatomy and physiology. I did pathophysiology. I did a few other things like that that really directly improved my capacity to understand my clients and be a better therapist anyway. So don't think that you have to take, you don't have to go on and become a physiotherapist or take a degree in something that you're not particularly interested in. You could take a degree in something that you are interested in and then go on to do higher research in a completely different topic. These topics, they don't have to flow necessarily sequentially. So I would encourage people, if they want, to take those higher degrees. And this is something that I have a couple of colleagues who have a master's in OT. It's an occupational master's. One of them came out of business administration, and then another one was a zoologist. But then having taken degrees and worked for some time in that other profession, then decided that they wanted to become occupational therapists. So they took a master's in occupational therapy, which is it is a professional qualification that you can take, a clinical qualification. Lots of masters are not clinical qualifications, but that one is.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter what your undergraduate degree is in. It's just having that. It's the AQF levels that are important. So once you've got level 7, you're eligible for level 8. Once you've got level 9, you're eligible for level 10. It doesn't matter if they're not in the same field. It is a lot of work to do a high degree by research, but it absolutely trains your brain. And if you are ready for that, then I think that you would really, really love doing it, because it's if you're a person that loves learning, it just feeds your soul.
Yes. I think we'd like to talk with you again, Jan, to talk about lymph and also get some further detail about your international involvement as well. I think therapists will be inspired by that.
Love to do that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Jan. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I've really enjoyed it.
We are talking with Dr. Sarah Fogarty, and Sarah has been in practice for over 24 years and currently works in clinic with a women's health focus. She has published over 40 papers. That's quite a lot, 40 papers, and presented her research at both national, international, and local conferences and massage organisations. And she was recently awarded a Massage Foundation Massage Research Grant in 2022 and is currently serving as Associate Editor for the International Journal of Therapeutic Massage and Bodywork. Hello, Sarah.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. It's lovely to be here.
I know you're so excited to talk to me about research today. So before I ask you the question, I just wanted to let everybody know you've just finished up another study, and I know that you can't give us details because it hasn't been published yet, but can you just very quickly tell us what the study was?
Sure. So it was an interventional study. So the intervention was massage. So we had a group of people who were pregnant after a stillbirth or a termination for medical reason, and the aim of the study was to see if massage could provide, as an adjunct, could provide support for them during their pregnancy after a loss.
And that study happened over about 6 months or so?
Yeah, no, a little bit longer. The study was supposed to go for about 12 months, but as studies tend to do, it went for a little longer. They always do. We recruited everyone within about 10 months. But what does happen in a pregnancy study is that people are pregnant for a while. So after you recruit them, there's potentially a sort of like 7-month window for them to get the treatments. So the final study participant went through their last treatment in July.
And this was Australia-wide as well, I should point out. Well, I know I'm very keen to find out the results of that study once you're published, which hopefully will be soon.
It's all relative. The publication takes a while.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear about that, because I was a therapist that you have had recruited for doing that. Thrilled to be involved. Yeah, I think I've known you for about 6 or 7 years now. I'm not sure how long. and have sort of done this with you before a little bit. And and as you know, pregnancy massage has been a bit of a thing that I do in my clinic for quite a long time now. And
it's great because if we didn't have the therapist, then the study wouldn't have worked. So I mean, we didn't know where people were going to come from, and if people were going to get someone, but just having a large enough sample of massage therapists or group of massage therapists for people to be able to potentially go to was a big part, I think, of recruiting the 76 people that we needed, because if we had 2 sites, there was no way we were going to get 76 people. So the fact that we had multiple sites was a big bonus. So even if you didn't see anyone, it was incredibly helpful.
Awesome. So now that we have talked about that, I really want to know, Sarah, how did you actually come to discover that research in massage was a thing that you could do? How did you know that that was, a career option? Because you've published 40 papers. That's not a small number.
No, some of them are not in massage, though. So I came, like a lot of, I guess, massage researchers, particularly in Australia, there is no direct way really into research because our undergraduate training is not university-based for most people. It is for some, but most people it's not university-based. So we don't have access to that university system and research system. So I'm also an acupuncturist, and I did my master's in acupuncture. And then through that way, I ended up doing my PhD, which is basically a training tool for learning how to research. I then got a role working on an acupuncture study, and that at a university, and that allowed me to, I guess, understand a whole heap more about research. So all different types of research, participate in a little bit more research. In terms of making a career out, I've got to say it's not paid mostly if you go down the route that I did, because there just really isn't paid roles for massage therapists in universities. So most of the research I've done is either voluntary or it comes out of a grant and you don't get paid exceptionally well, which is, a bit of a theme of massage sometimes, isn't it? So it is particularly difficult. And then I guess over time with the acupuncture stuff, I started to do a little bit more massage related stuff. And the thing about grant applications and that capacity to continue to research is it's about networking with other researchers. So other researchers who have done massage stuff, and then collaborating particularly with them always helps in terms of being able to research, and then creating that reserve of papers that supports any grant application. So most grant applications require a certain level of base evidence to suggest that the topic that you want to investigate has merit, because people really don't like to give you money if a topic doesn't have merit. So there are very few granting opportunities for massage therapists, really, in some ways, because grant funds are so highly sought. And so if we think about it, we're contributing, or we're competing with breast cancer researchers, any musculoskeletal condition, MS, neurodystrophy, all of that sort of stuff. And we're also then competing with a whole heap of other researchers that are investigating health and things that are potentially more severe or intense or deadly. And so it's quite hard funding wise for everyone who's a researcher, not just us, but for everyone, because often what we do is an adjunct. It's around things like well-being, quality of life, sometimes pain reduction, but not necessarily curing or not curing breast cancer or finding out some remarkable way that changes chemotherapy or the way that we do it. So there's only a certain pool for granting. And so it's quite difficult grant-wise, and there's only one that I know of, specific massage only grant.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Have you found over the years that people's opinions, I guess, or beliefs around research and massage and research have changed? I mean, I know myself I feel like there's been a lot of change over the 10, 12 years that I've been doing massage. It's sort of starting to really come into its own, and people are beginning to see that it's not so much of a luxury, which is what it seemed to be. It was either you got sports massage or it was a luxury.
There is definitely more research, I guess, showing things around quality of life, pain reduction in different areas. So during labor, pregnancy, obviously oncology massage has had a big boom in research and an increase in presence in hospital systems and as a legitimate healthcare option for people. So I think, and I also think that runs alongside our social beliefs around healthcare and that biopsychosocial model and the idea of wellness, and that those, the emotional, psychological, and experiences people have had all impact someone in terms of health and healthcare. So I think that change in model has also really benefited massage, because that is really a lot of what we do. And I would like to see, and I think we're seeing it a little bit, but I would love to see massage therapy researched more than just, I guess, that technical aspect of those protocols that go, you go up the back 3 times and then you go down the leg 4 times, and set protocols, which are useful because you can repeat them in practice if you find it, but don't really, I think, encapsulate what we do as massage therapy, which is, our knowledge, the way that we use our knowledge, the way that we adjust our treatments, the way that we get feedback from the person, the tissue, and the therapist itself, that all of that environment, that safe place, all of those things is massage therapy. And it would be nice if more of our research encompassed that, not just what happens if your hands do this.
I have to say I agree with you 100%, because you just cannot capture that on paper. You can't. I mean, how do you write down that you trust your therapist? How do you write down how they maybe give you feelings of security where you felt, so I don't know, just how do you write all that down? How do you put that on paper, and how do you replicate that? You can't. It's really hard.
No, but I do think you can, like mixed methods research, I think, which has become more popular, which encompasses both things that you can measure. So pain, out of 10, what was pain before, after, what was it? So things like that. And then the qualitative aspect of mixed methods, which is, what did that mean to you? What does that feel like? What was, how was it? All of those things, I guess, enable some of that in research to be captured. And if we look at the social sciences, so psychology, social work, those type of things, they do that already, because the therapist is so much a part of all of those treatments.
Yeah.
And learn a lot from social sciences. And there is actually a quantitative tool to measure therapeutic relationship in research. So it could be something that could be done and can be done in research. It's just, but it's also about how people design the study. So, what matters, some studies specifically take out the massage therapist. So they'll have a protocol that says no talking, so that the therapist can't contribute. It's literally just about, the effect of the hands-on. So whilst those are useful, I think, to establish a bit of a base for research and to help use research for things like, making sure that we stay with the health funds, that, people, that massage is viewed as a valued form of healthcare. They're good for those sorts of things. I think we can, now there is a bit more research, expand that just from the, I guess, what does massage value add to what is massage therapy, and how do we want that to look in the research, and what do we want that to look like going forward? Because I think that's, for me, that's where the value of massage is, all of those things.
Yeah, definitely. I have to just butt in here with, I get very annoyed still with when people say, oh, massage, it's just such a luxury service. And I'm just like, steam coming out of my ears, like, are you joking right now?
And I guess that's also something a challenge our profession has. And I'm not sure research is the answer for this, but we have such a varied group of individuals who practice massage, such a varied group of people that are the people that use it, and they use it for all different sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
And that is bigger and broader, I think, than a lot of other healthcare. So,
in some ways, definitely, it's a really broad brushstroke from both the therapist level and the person receiving the massage. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So this might be a hard question to answer, Sarah, but do you have any particular suggestions for folks listening who are interested in perhaps doing some research in massage on where to start?
It's such a hard area in lots of ways. There are many different ways that people can get into research, I guess, and most of them are sort of a bit indirect, as we talked about before. So aligning yourself with a university, doing a master's often is the first step for some people, particularly a master's by research, if you're able to do that. Although sometimes you have to do it by coursework first, depending on your qualifications. And going through various different, I guess, roundabout fashions. So through a physio department, for, like at a university, going through physio, for example, or going through public health, those type of avenues. There's no sort of real direct way to go. And aligning yourself with someone at a university, which can be really difficult to do, because that means you need to know someone and you need to know which department to go to, and whether that department and the person in it is vaguely interested in manual therapy at all. So some physio departments may not be interested in manual therapy. They must be much more interested in manipulative techniques or education or exercise. It's about finding the right person. The other way, I guess, is through finding one of the massage researchers and reaching out to them and expressing an interest. I know that over the course of my research, we have had a number of people who have come in on projects, who are really there to learn about research, learn a little bit more about it, get their name on a paper, which might help them, again, go down that pathway to approach a university. So that's one way to do it, and there's not many of us, but there's a few people here, a few people in America, Canada, that sort of space, that you can always ask them around and say that you're interested in massage research and see what projects they're doing. They're often projects that don't necessarily have people involved. So it might be something, or direct involvement with people. So it might be a survey. You might end up doing part of, being on the study, that there's a survey and that sort of stuff. Case studies are a way that massage therapists can get involved in research. It's a sample of one, but that is absolutely okay. And those interesting cases, or those cases where things didn't go so well, something that's a bit rare, something a bit novel, they are always great ways to get involved in research and get them published, because I know the International Journal of, I always hate this, IJTMB, whatever that, therapeutic massage and bodywork.
Too many acronyms.
I know, they're horrible. They definitely publish massage therapist case reports. So I know there are other areas that might be more specific to whatever condition you might be treating. But they are definitely a way that you can get published. And that would be, it doesn't feel like research, but it is research, because research is really all about sharing information, about understanding something better, and understanding the different ways that people respond. And even though it's a sample size of one, that is still research, because you are sharing your knowledge and you're sharing a particular way that someone in your care has experienced massage, whether that is because it went well or because it didn't go so well, or because you tried something different and it worked really well, or it was unexpected, or that it was a really rare thing that someone came in to see you with and massage was really helpful. That's an excellent way to get involved in massage from that point of view. There are, and that, then might open up again other doors for those connections with other researchers that.
Yeah, people might come to you instead of you having to go to them.
Yeah. And or if you contact someone else and they've heard your name or they've read your case report and gone, oh, that was great. It just makes that door a little bit easier to walk through, or to get some advice, or potentially to, collaborate with someone.
Yeah.
Because ethics is the big thing. Like, that's the real killer for research, is that your capacity to be able to get ethics approval that would conduct research.
Yes, I know ethics is always a really big issue for you. Every time you've done a study that I've been involved in, you're always like, the ethics, guys, the ethics, like, we have to be very careful and we have to do this, we have to do that. And which is great. Like, I think that's very, very important. But you don't really get a lot of people talking about ethics a lot in massage in very explicit terms. It usually is like, don't, sorry to change tactics here, but don't have sex with your clients is really what gets said.
Yep.
Don't assault your clients. But you were very explicit, and I remember you explaining quite a few things about, like, this is why we have to abide by these strict adherences and make sure that we're doing things correctly. So that was really interesting for me to learn about, I have to say.
And that is, I guess, a big learning curve for research. And it's why we can't just go ahead and decide to do some research ourselves, because the ethics body is there to make sure that we do no harm.
Yeah.
That the client or the research participant is fully aware of what is going on, what is required of them, and that harm has been thought about, has been minimized where possible, and that the thing that might be done to them, which in our case is normally massage, unless they're providing information or thoughts and experience data, is that the massage itself won't do harm. And it's really about harm, and it's quite different to being in clinical practice, because you don't have the same luxuries, I guess, as you do in clinical practice, where you can make your own decisions, particularly if you work for yourself, where you make your own decisions. You can, contact clients when you want. It's a slightly different experience. And I think that's sometimes where people who want to be involved in research get a bit caught up. They get excited. They decide they're going to do some research. They decide to survey people. And this is where it's really difficult, because you can survey all of your clients at your practice. You cannot publish that as research because you didn't get ethics approval for the research. So you can do it for yourself to learn about what matters to your clients, but you can't generally publish it anywhere without ethics approval. Yep. And so that's why it gets quite difficult, and sometimes the lines can be quite blurry, is because people go, I'll just survey my clients and then maybe I can get that published. And to be fair, it's still a bit grey around publications and quality assessments. And so it very much depends on the university and all different sorts of things. The universities will very much say anything that you're planning to use to collect to publish this research.
Well, I would assume that people have to know that they're part of a case study or part of research, that you have to actually be completely upfront and say, would you like to be, not you will be.
Yep. So you can do case studies retrospectively or prospectively. So you can have a chat with your client if they present really, with a really interesting thing, and say, hey, would you be okay? Would you be interested or open to the idea of your experience and journey being published as a case study, and then explain what that is? And so that would be retrospective, where you've already completed the treatment and you ask their permission. Normally there's a number of things involved. You have to show them the draft, you have to show them the final draft, and they have to sign something to give permission for it to be published. Most journals require that written acknowledgement.
Evidence that the client agrees.
Yep. Prospectively is if you work in, say, in pregnancy, and I did this. So I did a prospective case study where which was part of the evidence base that we used when we applied for the grant, was the use of massage to help support someone who was pregnant after a loss. So it was prospective in that sense that I hadn't collected any data yet. I thought about what data I would want to collect, what I would want to set as my sort of outcome measures, what it might look like, what we might want to do. And then when the right person came in, I asked them, would they be okay if we did it? So they knew right from the word go that they were potentially going to be a case.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Series, but they could have always withdrawn consent at any point in time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
okay.
If you work with something that there isn't much research around with massage, so dementia, I guess, any neuromuscular disease, then you could potentially do a prospective one where you go, right, my client population come in with this, there's almost nothing about this in the massage area. How could I demonstrate what it is that I do and how massage works? You could then ask a client, assuming they weren't vulnerable and assuming that they could give consent and all of those sorts of things, that then you could ask them whether they would consent, and they would know right from the word go that the data that they were giving and their story would be potentially going to be, published.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And everything obviously has to be anonymous as much as possible.
Yeah.
So that is one way, and I actually think it's a really valuable way to share information about what massage does, because we do cover it isn't just sports, and it isn't just, that luxury thing. There's a whole heap of stuff that massage is being used for that we just, as an industry, don't always know ourselves.
Yeah.
There's heaps, I'm sure, that people are doing that, and they're doing amazing things that I haven't even thought about massage in that way and being used that way. And so case studies, I think, are a really valuable way of sharing that, and starting that journey of creating enough evidence that there then might be something that comes from that. And sometimes massage ends up in reviews. So when people do systematic reviews or scoping reviews, then particularly if they do it for non-ingestible, so non-pharmaceutical supports, then they're going to potentially cover a whole range of therapies. And sometimes massage ends up in, management for example, non-pharmaceutical management for pain during labor. So then you end up with, your acupressure, your acupuncture. You end up with, depends whether I think gas is non-pharmaceutical, but showers, moving, and massage. And so then that takes a little bit of massage out into the other realms.
Yes, people start to think that we can actually use that as a way to manage pain or to do a specific thing. Yeah. So that case study could end up in management for, that's really what oncology have done so brilliantly. Management for palliation, and management for pain, management for well-being, quality of life. And all those bits of evidence have come together, and now it's a much more universally accepted option for care. Yes. I would assume that maybe lymphedema management is also in that realm, as you just described, oncology massage. We have the amazing Andrea Pluck here in South Australia, who has done at least 2 case studies that I know of, because she works almost exclusively, I think, with clients with lymphedema and lipedema. And she's done 2 case studies for research into lymphedema, and had wonderful results as well with her clients. Anybody that knows anything about lymphatic massage would know how effective it actually is.
But that's a great example of how powerful case studies can be, both for the clinician, but also in terms of education. That level of research, she's now presented it, multiple people know about it.
Yeah.
It's made an impact. It's going to make an impact potentially on how many people either refer or consider training or change the way they treat if they're already qualified in that area. Like, that's how powerful they are. And it's also, I think, that reminder, it doesn't always have to go well for it to be powerful. Sometimes when things don't go well, that's also really, really interesting. If someone responded really badly to massage, that also helps all of us learn and, hopefully be aware and not make that same mistake ourselves, or be mindful that we need to ask more questions, or be mindful for red flags that are a little bit hidden and not really in your face red flag.
Right.
All of those sorts of things. And I think that's why they're so powerful. And there is, in terms of hierarchy of evidence, which I find a really interesting concept, because hierarchy of evidence should really be about how it works for you, not it is an academic thing. Hierarchy of evidence is really about, how does this research matter to me? Because it doesn't matter if you've got an amazing systematic review that you can't understand as a massage therapist, that doesn't make any sense, and what they're saying doesn't make any sense in clinical practice, because that, whilst it might be the best level of evidence, it's not actually valuable if it doesn't do anything. And it's part of what's happened in research with statistically significant findings and clinically important findings. So they're 2 different things. So you come in, you've got back pain, I treat you, you're part of a study, you're part of a massive study for back pain, and there's a statistically significant decrease in pain. That's all great on a theoretical level, and it's fantastic. But if that statistical difference for pain reduction out of a level of 10 is 0.5, which there'll be lots of people going, that wouldn't be statistically significant if it was 0.5. But anyway, it might be, depending on how many people you had, and all different sorts of things. It's actually not clinically significant. Clinically significant as about an impact for you as an individual with pain. And so there are studies that now will list minimum clinical differences. And I can't remember what the pain one is, but it's often, I think, 2 points lower.
Okay.
So And it's the same with things like anxiety. If you are one or 2 points less anxious on a scale, but you're still really high, is that clinically significant or not? Like, notice, does it matter? And so this is why I think hierarchy around research is really interesting, because yes, there is a hierarchy, but hierarchy really only works if potentially you're a policymaker, but it doesn't even to that point sometimes. Like, they're people that we're dealing with, people at the end of this, and massage therapists. And if you look at a piece of research and it means nothing to you, and some of my research, I'm sure, is that for people, because it's so full of research terminology that sometimes I go, I'm not even sure that, any massage therapist is going to really understand this. So it's that balance of, does it matter? And if it matters, then it's important.
Yeah.
And those questions that we ask, though, are, is it valid? Is it, is the data, you want to make sure, I guess, the process itself is fairly rigorous.
Yeah. It's a little bit like throwing the baby out with the bathwater if we ignore all the different kinds of research and say, oh, well, there was only if we don't take case studies into account, but we will take this whole big, super duper double blind trial. Because particularly with, I understand that for if you're ingesting medicines, I totally get that's a thing and that should happen that way. But for really, people are individuals, and you cannot, you just why throw away all that amazing information and discount it just purely because it's just a one-on-one case study?
And they're so valuable. They're so valuable when, you learn something and you go, oh, I didn't even know massage could do that. Or, oh, I hadn't thought about doing it like this, or breaking up my treatment into this and this section, or doing this. And, and it also allows us to capture, again, the therapy. So what other things did you do? Did you give them advice? Did you reassure them? Did you help them believe that they could, improve or get better? That is all a part of what we do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've really been annoyed over the years with people going, oh, but it's not a double blind, and, massage isn't really a therapy, and the whole, people discounting things like acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine, and, the use of herbs and all of this stuff. There's a whole list, and people just completely discounting it. I'm like, well, on that individual level, there are thousands and thousands of people that get a lot of benefit from these therapies here in Australia. Why would you just throw all that away and just go, nope, it doesn't matter, it's not, it's not worthwhile?
It's a bit like, oh, it's just the placebo effect. But why wouldn't you? In therapy, I take every effect I can get. If people walk in and they feel like they're going to get better, which is of course a placebo effect, I will take that. And then whatever I do on top of that hopefully adds, and so that then they've got a greater chance with a whole heap of stuff, the therapist effect, the placebo effect, the effect of my hands, the effect of the environment. I'll take all of that.
Yeah.
If that helps them walk out feeling better. And we know it's not just limited to massage therapy. If you have a GP or a specialist that doesn't seem to understand you, or you don't really believe that what they're going to offer you works, then the placebo effect is in play in that as well.
Yeah.
I get that a bit in acupuncture. I don't really know why I'm here, because I hate needles and I don't think it's going to work. But my doctor told me I should probably come.
Well, that's me. I haven't had any acupuncture yet, Sarah, but I have committed myself to getting some acupuncture in the first half of next year. We're very close to Christmas at this point, so it's not happening in 2024. But again, I have a needle phobia, and I've had several people say to me this year, Jackie, acupuncture is amazing. You need to go and get some. And I'm just like, okay. And so I've convinced myself I'm going to do it. And we'll see how it goes, but I won't be looking at the needles.
Sometimes some therapies are not for some people, right? Some people don't like being touched, and of course massage is going to work potentially not so well on those people. But that's our clinic bias, though, mostly, isn't it? So our clinical practice is mostly people that want massage.
Yeah.
So that's our population. We don't actually need to worry about the people that don't want it. They will seek whatever healthcare they need through other avenues, and that's okay.
Before we wrap this up, Sarah, did you have any final advice or suggestions for people that are interested in research?
So again, one of those barriers is that many research articles are under a paywall through the journal, and so it's hard for massage therapists to access them. There is, so the International Journal of Therapeutic Massage and Bodywork is actually open access. So if you go to their website, you can, and obviously clarifying, I am an editor for that, but but you can go to their homepage and look at any of the articles they've published since inception. So that's open access. You can search through a site called PubMed.
Yep.
And that will, if you put massage and then whatever else you're interested in, that will list the articles. Some of those won't be open access though, but some of them might be. Same with Google Scholar. You can search through that. Some of them might be open access, some of them might not. Sometimes and often, if there's an article that you're interested in reading, if you email the author, assuming that they're still at the address that the paper email address the paper has for them, often you can request a copy of their article, and most researchers will genuinely share it, because the whole point of research is that dissemination of information.
Yeah.
There may be some embargoes for some of them, and there may be some reasons that they can't, but almost any researcher I have ever reached out to ask for a copy of their paper has always said yes. So
I have heard that. I've heard that researchers put a lot of time and effort into that research, and they want people to read it.
Yeah, they do. I suggest, that the journal, which is free, allows you can search through different things. So that allows you to read all of those articles for free. And then the ones that you can't, if you can get the email address of the contact of the first author or the person that is the contact for that, often they will share it with you. And then I guess it's about building that capacity which is a whole different topic, about how do you read a research paper and what does it mean and what are you looking for. So
we don't have time to answer that question today.
No. But that's another skill that's, that is important in what, you read research and what it means and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But Google Scholar, PubMed, and the journal homepage.
Yeah, that is excellent advice. Thank you for sharing that. And it gives people an idea of where to start at least. So that's really awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah, for being on the podcast with us today. It was an absolute thrill to chat with you and to catch up with you.